love in this place. Whenever two or more of us gathered in His name, I found the world is all the same. There is love in
you are joining from. We are happy again to have you one more time on Level Up Your Marriage. I am here, Paul Blake, with Raquel Blake, and we are from the island of Jamaica. And we are indeed happy to be on this program with you to share our experience, our expertise on the subject of marriage. And we have been having some very good discussions and getting good feedback also. And we just want to tell you how much we appreciate you for joining us and for being with us along this journey. This week we will be continuing a discussion we started the last time on the first Friday of September on why marriages are failing. And we had a very good discussion and got some very good input from our audience. And even weeks after, people are still inquiring on the subject. So we had discussed several things, and I think at the end of our discussion the last time we had started looking at some practical steps to prevent prevent infidelity and to strengthen the marital bond. And so we will be continuing that discussion this evening. Two of them that we had looked at was strengthen marital bonds and also to set boundaries. Welcome again, Raquel.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm happy to be here, and I just want to invite your participation. Feel free to like and to share, to tell others about this. Invite others, and we look forward to an interesting discussion, conversation. We talk about what are things causing marriages to fail, but we also want you to know that we are providing tips, strategies in terms of how you can enhance and promote your marriage. You know, the idea is that we want to advocate for tips and strategies to prevent divorce. And so we ask that you participate, that you comment, that you follow along with us, because indeed an exciting and interesting evening is planned for you.
If you are wherever you're joining from, if you are interested in joining our email list, just leave your email in the chat. Just type your email in the chat and we will add you to our email list as we begin to roll out, sending out our newsletter and also tips and tidbits on marriage and relationships. And so if you are interested, just please type your email address with your name in the chat and we will add you to our email list. You can also send us an email at levelupyourmarriagecoc at gmail.com. That's levelupyourmarriagecoc at gmail.com. And you can also contact us at 876-835-6524. That's my number. And 876 421-6722. That's Raquel's number. You might never know why you might want to contact us. It might be to ask a question, might even be to ask us to put on a marriage seminar for you. So feel free to contact us. So let us get into the discussion for this evening. As we look at the different things that cause marriages to fail. And again, the statistics that are present, and looking at it from a Caribbean perspective, that we are presently at somewhere between 40 to 50% of marriages either failing or not enjoying the best of relationship. And so it tells us that there is a crisis looming. And we look at the fact that society really doesn't, uphold marriage the way that God sees marriage and God upholds marriage, and that it is causing a number of challenges. I was reading something this week that said when we remove the covenant relationship from marriage, it became a contract.
Mhm.
And it became nothing but a contract. And the article said that that is where the failure began, because marriage is really a covenant relationship between two persons and God. And whenever we move the covenant element out of it, it is nothing but just a contract. Very interesting perspective, and there is actually some truth to it. So, as we engage in this discussion, Raquel, for the next hour or so, we had looked at setting boundaries in marriage, establish clear boundaries with people outside of the marriage to prevent inappropriate and physical, well, inappropriate emotional or physical closeness.
Mhm.
I would want to ask you from a female's perspective, a married female, how important is this?
Very good question. It is actually very, very important because you always make the distinction that, and we know it. Make the distinction that in terms of, for women, the emotional connection is so important. Men and women are different,
Hmm.
and so it's important that we understand our differences, and how for women, when we allow persons who are not our husbands to become, or when we allow ourselves, for that matter, for persons who are not our husbands to become emotionally connected to us, then that puts us in a trap, that puts us in jeopardy, in danger of affecting our marriage in a negative way, you know. Um, so it's a very important question, and it's a safeguard, setting that boundary, that line that says,
Hmm.
I will, certain relationships, certain connections, certain conversations, I will only have with my husband.
Exactly,
I
sure.
will not entertain certain things with another male, because it's going to put my marriage in
Boy,
danger.
these days even females. Well,
Well,
even another female can be a danger. I
that's
want I
true.
want to change the wording of something that you said. It's not. I don't want to call it emotional connection. I will call it emotional entanglement. Because it's really an entanglement, because the only person that we are supposed to really be emotionally connected to in that way, are our spouses.
Yes.
And so if you end up in that kind of space where that kind of
Entanglement.
entanglement exists, so it's emotional entanglement. And also the same in some regard works on men. And I think that it may be more difficult for men to establish boundaries. I don't know if you necessarily agree with that, but speaking from a male's perspective, I think that it might be a tad more difficult for men to establish boundaries. And I guess it's because of our makeup that we are the protectors, the providers, and all of that. And you know the male ego that is often fed by interests and all of that. And so I don't know. I don't know if you agree. You can disagree, but
But that's
I
that's
think
that's the reason for the boundary. And
yeah.
so, in order to protect what you have,
Hmm.
okay, let us talking about let us talk about the males and their cars.
Hmm.
You know, or your gadget or whatever. In a similar way that you're not going to allow everybody to drive your car.
Well, true.
And so, because your marriage is important to you, then if it's difficult initially, it's something that is necessary. It's something that is going to safeguard this relationship that you have. And so, it becomes important now that because this marriage is important to me, in the same way that should be more than your car. But you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
Is that you're going to say, okay, then this is where I'm going to go. This is where I'm not going to go. And sometimes you don't have to say a word. You can take yourself away from the situation, or you can prevent yourself from certain situations.
Yeah. In Proverbs chapter 5, verse 15 through 20. I'm not going to read it, but what this passage emphasizes is the importance of
Avoiding.
of enjoying our spouse.
Yes.
And avoid, in order to avoid temptations. And this is something that I keep saying to couples. You are not the only person that you're well, let me fix it a little bit. In terms of physical attraction, we will always be attractive to other people, right? And that is just how life is. Somebody will look at you and say that you look good, whether you're a male or female. And so those boundaries have to be clear, right? Those boundaries have to be very, very clear. That when somebody makes this kind of comment or advance, or that you don't entertain it. Because the problem is not necessarily the comment or even the advance. The problem is what you choose to entertain. And as human beings, we just want to see like a space that is open, just like with Adam and Eve in the garden. We just want to see like a space that is open to intrude. And so those boundaries have to be set from very early, right? The devil uses every gap that he can find, every gap that he can manipulate, to destroy our relationship. And so therefore the boundaries have to be very clear from early. All right. Another one we can look at, Raquel, in terms of practical steps is accountability, seeking accountability, right? And also, looking at the fact that depending on what is happening in the relationship between spouses, temptation may creep in at any point in time, right? Because we talk about the gap a while ago that is there. And so one of the best ways to avoid slipping into temptation is to have accountability, right? And this is also where communication between spouses is important, and especially the whole idea of being transparent, being honest, right? Being open to having difficult conversations, right? What if, just for argument's sake, I should come home and even I say, Raquel, I saw a nice young lady and she make an advance at me, or whatever, however you want to put it. Are you open to having that conversation, right? Because we have seen, Raquel, where this kind of thing happens in relationships, and one person wanting to be open to something that has happened where temptation is concerned, and how it is received on the other side actually makes it worse rather than better. Sometimes accusation comes in. So the reason why a girl look at me is you must have done something for her to look at you. It's really, right? It must be something that you have done, where it might not be anything that I have done or you have done. But somebody does decide that they look at you and they like how you look and they would want to get to know you better, and they make a bold face advance. Are we willing to have those difficult conversations with our spouses?
Well, we should, because I guess we have to get real, because those things happen every single day. whether we like it or not.
In the workplace, on the road, right? Right. Sometimes even the church. Right?
So it's one of those things that you prepare for before it happens.
Yes.
And that's one of the things too, in terms of talking about setting boundaries. That is also could also be considered in setting a boundary, where you have some kind of discussion about how do you navigate the temptation. What are things that we can do to keep our marriage sacred, to keep it special, to keep it between us, and not a third or fourth person.
So can we hold each other accountable?
That is necessary. Yeah.
So if somebody looks at me in a nice way, I can come and say, Raquel, somebody look at me in a nice way.
Of course. But it's important, because that is also increasing the level of trust, increasing the level of vulnerability. That sends a message. I have an attractive wife or an attractive husband.
True.
But you also want to value that, because when you take the bold step to share that information, you're also saying, I want to increase the connection. I want to increase the communication between us, and doing that also helps, because it's a reality that all couples must understand and must face. That other people might find your spouse attractive, but the fact that another person finds your spouse attractive doesn't mean that you're going to do anything about it.
Exactly.
Right?
True.
That's where the accountability on the part of the individual comes in, but also accountability on the part of others. If let's say I can, and it's important to understand your own weakness or my own weakness.
Well, true.
Because if there's a weakness in one particular area, then you might have accountability, where if you let's say you're hanging out with your friends, and they see something, then you would have had some kind of conversation with that friend, that if you see something, or if somebody is becoming too bold with me, then pull me away.
Yes, as I was actually going to bring that up, that and again, speaking from the male's perspective, that we must have other males in our lives who will hold us accountable, right?
Partners, yeah.
And that's why I like what the book of Amos says. I think it's Amos chapter 3, 1 and 2, when it says, can two walk together lest they agree? And so we must have persons in our circle who are like-minded.
Yes.
Right?
Definitely.
Your brethren, our friend who is a womanizer, can hold you accountable. Right? And I will dare to say that he probably will not hold you accountable. Right? So in that space of accountability, I believe also that we need to have those persons in our space who will hold us accountable, and also will call out when we err. Right? Call us out. Right? And be honest with us, because those things are important. If we don't have those kind of persons in our circle, then it can also spell problems. Right?
True.
Seeking, how important, Raquel, is counseling in terms of taking a step to prevent infidelity? How does counseling come up in all of this? Because again, this is something that you and I, we deal with almost every day in our practice as counselors.
Yeah.
That counseling is, well, I would say very important. But there is also a looming issue that we have where counseling is concerned. That most of the time when we counsel, who do we see first?
See the wife.
See the wife first. When do we see the men?
When things are really bad.
when I would not even say when things are really bad. I'd say most times we see the men is when the relationship is basically over and on the verge of being over. But I'd also want to suggest that if individuals are having problems in their relationship, especially where infidelity is concerned, counseling is a very good tool, is an effective tool, right? That I think that we often don't use as much as we should. It is not. It is. I don't think it's a. It should be a last resort for the relationship. It should be an integral part of helping to sustain the relationship and also to keep it going.
Yes, yes. Just like when you made that point, I thought of, when you buy a car, when you buy a house. I guess a car is, you plan to maintain it, right?
Well, the house you have
Every
to
six
maintain
months,
it as
every
it,
six
it will
months,
it
every
will
3 months.
it will fall down around if you don't
Yeah.
maintain it.
So the element of, so you're not going. So people shouldn't seek out counseling when things are bad.
Mm-hmm.
Just like you go to your doctor every 3 months or every 6 months, and you do an annual checkup.
Mm-hmm.
It's important in relationships, in marriages, to use the help of a neutral person, an expert person, a trusted person, an individual that can provide a non-judgmental safe space to discuss issues, to clarify,
Mm-hmm.
and if, let's say, you see red flags, if there are things happening, then it can be used as a preventative measure.
Exactly. I was on a program on Tuesday, and we were talking about the same thing of infidelity. And in the discussion, I remember something coming up, and the stats are out there. When infidelity occurs in a relationship, most of the times the infidelity is not the problem.
True.
The infidelity is basically the residual effect of bigger issues,
True. Yeah.
right? So it is I don't even want to call infidelity being the final nail in the coffin, for want of a better phrase, right? But usually when infidelity occurs in relationships, it's an indication that there are serious problems that were possibly ignored,
Mm-hmm.
that were not realized, or something else. And so and are there signs of infidelity or signs of pending infidelity that we can look at? Because yes, there might be some signs that we often don't pay attention to, right? And are that it is going to take place, or that it can happen.
Yeah, because remember, they are in fact signs. They are warning signs. They are things to, if you find
Where we
that.
need to do a whole program on
Yeah.
warning signs.
There's a book. There's a book that says, that's called "Divorce Proof Your Marriage."
Divorce, yes, I remember that book.
Yes,
Divorce proof your
for
marriage.
marriage,
Hmm.
which means that, it's important that we pay attention to what's happening. How is the level of communication? Is there bitterness? In our first session, we talk about anger,
Hmm.
not
True.
allowing anger to dominate. Are there unresolved problems? How is the communication going? How is what is their resentment? Are there a lot of quarrels, and
Hmm.
um, although you might be sleeping in the same bed, are you enjoying your relationship?
Yes,
Are you
true.
enjoying? Is there intimacy? Because those things, when they begin to, the interest begins to decrease.
Hmm.
You no longer feel happy or excited, or you're not enjoying your relationship. Then those are signs that says
That, yes, yeah,
we need to
true.
we need to
I
do we need to
agree.
do a
I
check
agree.
in.
I agree. I agree.
We need to do a check in.
And in this case, sometimes counseling is the best tool, because the counselor who is able to sit from a space of objectivity,
Yes.
right? And that is one of the reasons we encourage couples, especially when these situations like these take place, not to necessarily go to a counselor that they know, but go to somebody who is independent, somebody who can be objective, who
Yes.
can look at both situation. Well, look at the situation from both sides, and be very objective in the situation. But counseling is important, and we encourage couples to seek counseling. As a matter of fact, I would suggest that counseling is an ongoing activity in marriage, right? It is not to be used just to solve problems, right? But can also be used just to maintain, right?
Definitely.
You don't service a car because the car has problems in it, right? You service the car because you don't want it to give problems.
Right, and you want it to remain in top.
You want it
peak
to remain
conditions.
in top. And this is one of the things, Raquel, and I've said it before and I'm going to say it again. I have been advocating from I got involved in counseling couples. I have been advocating that couples come back for postmarital counseling. That I strongly believe that couples should get between 6 months to 1 year counseling after the wedding day, because I think it helps. Well, to this date, I think I only have two couples who have come back where that is concerned, and it tells us sometimes how we kind of view life and how we view counseling as a profession, that is only to solve problems, not to maintain or to sustain.
Right. People tend to be reactive rather than proactive.
True.
And so, it's just it's important to try and have a different mindset. And along with counseling, there are other things that persons can think of. There are retreats,
Seminars,
there are
retreats,
seminars.
yes.
There are.
And in this day of technology, many of them are online. You don't have to go into the space
You
necessarily.
can purchase books and read them together.
If you don't want to read, you can listen it. Right? So there is something for everyone. That's right.
There's something for everyone. And the time when you might be short on funds, even talking to a minister of religion, talking to your pastor.
Yes.
But of course, being selective, that so it must be a trusted friend, somebody who is mature, and somebody who has insight.
Yes.
Because you can't be talking to somebody who's not married,
yes,
to help you with your marital issues.
Somebody who don't have experience.
Or somebody without experience.
Yeah, I agree. I strongly agree.
So there are many ways that individuals can take a proactive approach.
Yes, I agree.
In helping to keep their marriage strong.
But as we move on, Raquel, here's one other thing again. Marriages are destroyed by unrealistic expectations. People enter marriage sometimes thinking that it will solve all of their problems, that it will bring them unending happiness and joy, that they ride off into the sunset and live happily ever after. People enter marriage hoping to find that somebody fulfills their happiness. People enter marriage for all different kind of reasons.
True.
Except the reason that it was made for. A part of the practical steps that we are looking at, and especially where infidelity is concerned, is that we need to look at our expectations.
True.
Right? Because if you enter marriage with an unrealistic expectation, the end result of that is dissatisfaction. You are not, because you need whatever you think you need is not going to be met, and you are going to become dissatisfied. When you are dissatisfied, then you are going to go looking for satisfaction elsewhere where you think it can be provided. And so it is necessary that even before marriage takes place, that we look at what are our expectations of marriage.
And they should be discussed. It's something that person just it's important that you talk about what does marriage mean to me.
Yeah. Yes.
Many times people don't even consider that question. There's
Yeah.
no discussion about okay. Um, it's just about just the glitter, the excitement of marriage, but
So
really marriage is hard work.
delusions of grandeur.
Marriage is hard work, and so it's important to talk about. It's okay to ask basic questions, and it's also okay to ask some hard questions, so
Raquel,
that you're not surprised.
let me share something with you. We have been involved in counseling for more than 15 years between us. Probably 30 years if you put all of the years together. And in the last, say, 5 years, we have seen a shift in our practice with people, because we are now dealing with a particular generation who we watch grow up. Right? So we have people of our age that we deal with, but we are now dealing with a new generation of persons that we would have seen from Sunday school growing up. And if they were not members of the church, we would have known them in some other context. And you know, we have been having discussions with many of these persons. And one of the things that I find happening, Raquel, is that this generation, their expectation and perception of marriage is beyond anything that we know. And it bothers me. It really, really bothers me, because when I sit and talk to the average person today about marriage and relationship, especially the generation that we call Gen Z, it's amazing how people think of marriage.
True.
What do you have to say about that?
Um, it's important to allow them to speak. It's
Mm-hmm.
important to hear what they have to say, but it's also important to share with them. We have to go back to the source, because persons just are interested in immediate fixes, what's happening now, you know, financial gains. What can you do for me, as opposed to what we can do for each other. And so it's important that there be a discussion, because young people in the Gen Zs, they have good points too. They delay getting married, and no, there's no problem in getting married at an old age, because really, in, if you remember, then the brain stops growing at age 25. So it's okay to allow yourself more time to mature and to grow, so that you
So,
can be better able to make good decisions, better decisions. So it's okay. So some of those points that the Gen Zs might, share with us about, delaying the time when they get married, they might want to work on their career, they might want to work on other goals.
mhm.
It's reasonable, you know. But it's also important to remember that marriage is an honorable thing. Marriage is a great institution, but it's important to be prepared for it. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And if when I look at the whole thing, Raquel, um, unrealistic expectations,
Yes.
I look at it against the background of how the world paints marriage, right? Of the our present society, the perception that is given of how marriage is supposed to function.
Yes.
It leaves a lot to be desired. And social media, everything is part of the whole process, right? Social media gives a particular perception of what relationships are
True, true.
and how they should function. And we have our young people, our Gen Zs, and even sometimes people of our age also. We are absorbing all of this. And then we move into the space of marriage, carrying these expectations and perceptions with us. And before long, you end up in the counselor's office because of these particular perceptions. It comes back to this place that we have to go back to the blueprint. How does God see marriage? How does God view marriage? And going back to what I said before about the covenant relationship, right? Because one of the things that if we understand what a covenant relationship with is, where God is concerned, and the covenant relationship that we should have where marriage is concerned, then we would not enter in marriage with these kind of expectations. Because what we'd actually be doing is first and foremost to seek whether or not the relationship that we are even pursuing is one that God sanctions.
True, true, true.
Right? Because the truth is, we have many persons who are married and said that is God send them partner. Right? That when we sit down and analyze it, boy, that partnership could not be sanctioned by God. I even heard something today. I'm always reading stuff where this young lady said that she got married to this gentleman, and after 15 years, God told her that he was the wrong man for her. And I said, Lord
After
of
15
mercy.
years.
I said, God waited until all of 15 years to tell you that you are married to the wrong person.
No.
And I am one, as a matter of fact, she lived with the person for 8 years
Before they got married?
before they got married. And the whole relationship was 15 years. So she said after 15 years, God told her that her husband was the wrong person. I said, but hold on. Why did God wait? Not God couldn't tell her that in the 8 years. Why did God have to wait until you were married? I mean, all of that He should have told you in the 8 years. And when I listened to her, again, it comes back to what we are discussing. If you should listen to some of the expectations that she had pertaining to her getting married and having a husband, it is no strange reason why God, where has she claimed God told her that this man wasn't her husband.
Right, but you'd also realize that, it's important to assess things, because if the same God that doesn't endorse divorce, how is it that he's saying to her no that it's a wrong husband or it's a wrong individual? So when people talk about God, we also have to line it up with scripture. We also have to
Exactly.
line it up with what we know about God and what the scripture says about God. So that one is a little questionable for me, or is much questionable, because really the same God that institute marriage, the same God that tells us that we should choose our partners well, and we should also make ourselves um, the partner that someone who seek to get married. Also speaks about the fact that we should avoid divorce. Is not something that he loves, that he's
Yes, that's
recommending.
right. That's
So you
right.
can assess a situation, assess a circumstance, and realize that she wasn't ready, because even this, I think we talk about biblical insights. There's the Bible verse in Corinthians that talks about that those who desire to get married
Yes.
will face what?
Wait. Yes.
Will face some trouble.
We'll
Will face some
trouble.
challenges.
Right.
And so when you think about marriage is also is sunshine and rain.
Yes.
You're going to have challenges.
Yes.
You can come after 17 or 15 years to say, okay, with all of these troubles, I no longer want you to be my husband.
Exactly.
It doesn't work like that.
So these are unrealistic expectations include, like expecting your spouse to be perfect, expecting immediate change in the relationship. I always tell couples, Raquel, the thing that you see in your spouse, or the person that you intend to marry. If you marry them today, do not expect it to change tomorrow. Don't expect that somehow, because you have said I do, that some magical thing is going to happen that will just cause this person that you married as a caterpillar to change into a butterfly the next day. Right? On the program that I was on Tuesday, I brought up this thing that you always hear me use in our seminars. Knowing everything that you know about you, would you marry you?
True.
And I always get the same response: total silence. Right? But the truth is, you are asking somebody, well, to put up with who you are, knowing all of your faults, all of the bad things that, and naturally there are some good things.
Of course.
But don't expect that your spouse is going to become the perfect person the next day, because you yourself are not perfect.
Right. And then you see, if that's going to be an overarching factor, that means that you're not quite ready to
You're
get
not
married.
you're not quite ready,
Not
right?
quite ready.
And we keep telling person, and we need to do a whole program on that part of it, where we impress upon persons who are getting married that it is all right to come out, it's all right to pull out of the marriage, the wedding day.
Right. So the period
Right?
of court,
Right.
the period of courting, it doesn't say that you're guaranteed to get married. It's a process of learning and going and looking. Can I really commit to
Exactly.
this lifetime decision?
Yes, Pauline said, totally agree. Postmarital counseling is very important, and it's something that I am going to be pushing and advocating for. Possibly, I don't know if it's going to happen in my lifetime, but probably when I'm gone, people will be more involved in postmarital counseling. But I think that it is very essential. So expecting immediate change, expecting happiness to come from the spouse alone. And this one we know is a huge issue. I am not happy. We hear that all the time. I'm just not happy. You know, I thought that marriage would make me happy. And most of the time you hear that statement, it's actually projected on the other person, right? This person is not making me happy. And again, we tell spouses that before you go into marriage, you must already be happy,
Exactly.
right? Because
Exactly.
your spouse not will make you happy if you are not happy. It doesn't matter what kind of personality your spouse has. If you are not in charge of your own happiness, nobody else is going to make you happy.
Exactly.
Right.
That's a personal growth. That's a issue that you have
Yes.
to address personally.
Exactly.
You know.
No, your spouse can help to make you happy,
Yes.
but I guarantee that they cannot be totally responsible for your happiness. And that's what you call real talk.
And the importance of each person being a whole person.
Yes.
Before becoming involved with another person.
Yeah.
You always talk about the fact that you have your baggage and I have my baggage.
Yes, that's true.
When these two baggages come together, you have more baggages, right?
Yes.
And so it's important to take time to develop yourself, to be okay with yourself as an individual, and then it becomes easier to navigate the equation from
Yes.
being single to being a couple.
Yeah. Well, another thing, Raquel, that in terms of practical steps in safeguarding our marriages, and I recently heard a discussion on trauma in marriage, that a lot of people carry trauma into their marriage, which is almost like a ticking time bomb.
That's a rough one.
No, And why it's difficult, Raquel, is that dealing with your trauma before you get married is not necessarily something that you can do totally. I think that most of us carry some amount of baggage into our relationships.
Mm-hmm.
But what I think is important is that there must be a willingness to deal with it. You can't enter marriage with trauma and you take out the trauma on your spouse. We know that will blow up somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Traumatized spouse.
We carry dysfunction into our relationships also.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You take two people from these backgrounds who have dysfunctional families and you bring them into the space. If you don't deal with that, it's also going to cause problems in the marriage. And so what I'm getting at is that there must be a willingness to deal with these issues because they are not going to evaporate.
Indeed.
Right? You
Indeed.
carry them with you. And why it's so important, Raquel, is that these traumas and dysfunctions and so forth does not only affect the spouses,
Mm-hmm.
but it can affect
Children.
It can affect other family members.
Yeah.
Because we know trauma and dysfunction are cycles, right? It's an ongoing cycle. And if it is not dealt with, then it can have generational implications.
Which makes the point, that as we are talking about, what are causing marriages to fail.
Mm-hmm.
It's important that there's some self-assessment.
True.
Self-assessment. To um? Am I ready to get married? Am I ready to take on this responsibility of being involved in the life of another individual, and of course, bringing children into the world? And so, having open and honest communication are necessary. There's a comment in the chat.
Pauline said, I would marry me.
That's right. That's right, and that is part about the being open and honest. Where it's important to assess yourself.
Yes.
It's important that no, that's good. That's good where you can look at and okay, do I have the qualities necessary to make a good wife?
Yes.
To make a good partner? And if I mean, we're all human beings, we have imperfections and so on. What steps can I do to improve this area? Am I too miserable? Am I too fussy? And as we spoke about other times, that we talk about looking for the right partner, but are you the right partner?
Yeah.
What are some of the things that you can do? So as we are you know talking about what are the things that are causing marriages to fail, I think it's also we're also navigating and sharing things that will help to make your marriage
Yeah,
successful.
true.
And we want to talk some more about the practical things that people should expect to improve their relationship, to improve their marriage expectations.
Every book that you will read
Yes.
about marriage,
Mm-hmm.
every seminar that you will attend, every counselor that you speak to will tell you
Yes.
that open and honest communication is important for not just marriage,
Any
any
relationship.
relationship. But Raquel, that is one of the hardest ones to come to. Open and honest communication.
So
Why is it so difficult?
Yeah, you tell me, why is it so difficult? Because when people are dating, they make up, they talk to each other, they text, they're in each other's space.
But we know when you're dating, you put out your good side.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody puts out their bad side when they're dating.
Yeah, but why would you want to continue that good side after you
we do
the price?
but when we are
after you get the price,
it is something of human nature. And this doesn't only happen in marital relationships or relations like this, Raquel. Even somebody who you are meeting for the first time, who you don't share, there's no romantic inclination towards them. As human beings, we tend to put out the best part of ourselves,
best foot forward.
right? And that's a good thing in some sense, but at some point in time, the mask needs to come off, right? Because that is where you have to be willing to expose who the real person is. I always say that I don't know, and people disagree with me every time I say it. There are some people who are of the view that people can hide so much that it is impossible to get to know the through them. I don't necessarily believe that. People tell you that they just get up, they are married to somebody and just get up one day and the person just become a totally different person. I don't necessarily believe that. What I believe is that sometimes we see things that are clearly red flags, and because we are so in love, we don't pay attention to them.
Yeah, we become blinded.
And then we hope that they will change. As soon I am that good, I'm that beautiful and handsome, that this person is just going to change. I see all of the red flags that are there and know that these things are going to cause potential problems in the relationship. But because I am so in love and I want to ride off into the sunset and live happily ever after, that we don't pay attention to these things.
Well, that's why it's important that we spoke about accountability. We spoke about having trusted friends and people around us that can say, "Oh, come on, Raquel, what's happening here? Step back and look." Because of a fact, if let us be true to ourselves, that we all have weaknesses, we all have strengths, and with these weaknesses and strengths, then it's important to assess. Okay, how is this relationship going? What are my weaknesses? What are his strengths? What are my his weaknesses and his strengths? And as a result of these things, as you're navigating the relationship, you set realistic goals, realistic expectations based on what you know, based on the strengths, based on the weaknesses. So doing a SWOT analysis, not only for business, and financials,
I want to sound technical.
No, man. Doing a SWOT analysis is where each person looks at
that's true.
his or her strengths.
Yeah, it's true.
Look at his or her weaknesses and see, okay, how will you complement my strengths? How will you complement my weaknesses? So we can make an extraordinary team.
In other words, you need to discuss your expectations.
Yes, man.
In an open and honest way.
Yes,
right?
man.
That's true. I want to bring into the mix to Raquel. And it's kind of sad that we have to remind Christians of these things. But one of the things that sustains marriage, and every time we discuss marriage, we discuss it from a Christian perspective, that we can't lose Christ out of our marriages.
That's right.
Hebrew writer in Hebrews 12, verse 2 says, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith.
Yes.
I think that many Christians are facing difficulty in their marriages because Christ is absent from the relationship.
True.
And let me hasten to say, it's not because they are any less spiritual. But do you know that sometimes even church can get in the way of our relationships? It sounds bad, don't it?
You want to explain that a little more?
Even our own faith as Christians can get in the way of our relationships. Do we know how many men who are Christians, they value the church above their relationships? They will do anything for the church. Somebody calls them at the dead of night to do something where church is concerned, and they run out of the house and gone. And their spouse and children are at home asking them to do things, and they neglect them.
Yeah, that's a serious one.
It reminds me of what Paul said to young Timothy, that if a man does not take care of his own house, he's worse than an infidel.
Yes.
And many times we look at that only in terms of providing material things. But that is also very true about the emotional and spiritual welfare of the family. Right? So keeping God, when we keep God at the focus of our relationships, then it's always going to bring us back to a place where we are seeking to do what is God's will for our relationships.
I'm in full agreement.
And
you can't do marriage alone.
You can't.
Christ has to be in the mix, in the middle of it.
Somebody may ask then, what about people who are not Christians? Well, I don't know how they do it. It's difficult. It's even difficult. It's difficult doing it as a Christian, much as if you are not a Christian. I don't know. I don't know, because we have to allow the Word of God to inform us.
True.
Right?
I agree.
It is the Word of God that informs me when I don't feel like being a good husband. Right? And I love you and Timothy dearly, but it is the Word of God that reminds me that you need to straighten up. Right? You need to get back on track. Right? And when we keep that at the focus, the center of our relationships, it's not that we will not have challenges, but God's word helps us to navigate better.
Right, and just to add, it's important that each person have that spiritual relationship, that spiritual connection with God, because it is by my personal conviction and by your personal conviction, it's by your belief in wanting to honor God and want to honor your marriage vows, that we can do it together.
Yes, true.
We can do it individually, but we can do it together.
Can do it together. True. I agree. Pauline says, true, some people think that they can change their partners, although they see the red flags. So they go ahead hoping for them to change. And we have seen that so many times. So many times. It is now what?
It's just a few more minutes
Just
before
a few more minutes. I can't believe an hour has passed already. But we have a lot more to say. We should look at our expectations, set realistic goals. We should seek Christ, put him in the center of our relationships. And the last thing I want to look at, Raquel, before we close, treat each other with patience and grace. Many times in our relationships, we forget grace and mercy.
Grace and mercy.
And it comes back again to the thinking that our spouses are perfect. Sometimes, if you want to enjoy a good relationship that is sustainable and full of romance and all of that, you have to learn to exercise mercy, grace, and patience. It goes a long way.
It goes a long way.
Right?
And remember, in your own humanity too.
In your own humanity. Remember.
As I extend it to you, you'll extend it to me.
As I extend it to you, you extend it to me. And if we keep that at the forefront of our minds, then we will enjoy better relationships. Right? Think of God gives us mercy and grace every day that we don't deserve. And if God can give us grace and mercy that we don't deserve, who are we not to extend grace and mercy towards other persons?
It's a mindset that you have to cultivate.
It is a mindset we have to cultivate.
Because persons,
I agree.
You have to cultivate. You have to be intentional, and to make marriage work, and to be a good wife and to be a good husband, we have to be intentional. We have to be committed. We have to be dedicated to it, because really, we can't do it on our own, but with a willingness, with a desire, then we can see that we can achieve it.
Yes.
We can achieve great things in our marriages.
So marriages are failing, and that's the truth. But yours don't have to fail.
True.
Right? You can, if you are on the platform with us tonight, you can enjoy a great relationship. But as I always say, marriage requires work. And not just work, but it requires hard work. As men, we can't be so selfish and into our own spaces, wanting to do our own thing. not remembering that God has given us an awesome responsibility where our families are concerned. That we ought to love our wives, and that's a scary thought. Love our wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself
for it.
for her.
For her.
It's a scary thought.
Will you die for me?
I get in there. That's it. That is what God asks us to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is prudent upon us to learn how to navigate marriage so that God is glorified,
Yes.
and we can enjoy the romance.
The romance and the benefits of being partners.
Of being partners.
No,
partners.
Yeah, we're made for connection. We're
partners in life.
Yeah, we're
not
made
in
for
crime.
connection. We're
Partners
not in life. Yeah.
Tonight has been a very good discussion on Level Up Your Marriage, and we are indeed happy that you have joined us. In case you missed tonight, you can always catch it on our Facebook page. It's always up there. It will be up there by tomorrow morning. You can catch the rerun on our Facebook page, Level Up Your Marriage.
And also Lbwradio.
And also you can find it on YouTube on Lbwradio. Remember, if you want to be a part of our email list, just please send us an email at levelupyourmarriagecoc@gmail.com. If you have not typed it in the chat tonight, you can send us an email and we will add you to our email list. We have some very exciting things coming in the very near future. We want you to be part of this movement of leveling up your marriage. We believe that God has given us the tools. God has blessed us in such a way with a very, I want to say a very strong marriage and relationship. And he has blessed us also from an educational perspective where both of us are involved in counseling couples and sharing with them, right? And we want you to be a part of this movement, the Level Up Your Marriage movement, because we believe that we can make marriages better just one marriage at a time. Wherever you have joined from tonight, we are happy that you have joined us, whether from the USA, whether from England, in Africa, or somewhere in the Caribbean. We are happy that you have joined us. From Level Up Your Marriage, Raquel and Paul, we will see you again the first Friday in October, and then on the third Friday again, as we continue to discuss all things pertaining to marriage. God bless, and thank you very much.
See you soon.
They can never take the love that's in this place.